Right, good morning, everybody. I'll call this morning's meeting to order for Tuesday, August 24th. And the first item of business is to approve the agenda, and we do have one agenda addition this morning, which is a request to approve a resolution required for the sale of property that I think we had previously approved the sale of. So, and then if we can have that included in the motion, and I'd like to act on that right before Kathy's presentation this morning.
So move.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Evering. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move into citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard this morning on items not on the agenda? Yes, sir. Would you care to come up to one of these microphones, make sure the green light is on, and if you can state your name for us for the record, please.
Good on. Brian Brunette. I just have a few questions for the board, if that's all right. Is Clay County considered a local government? Is the sheriff department part of the local government? How many people in Clay County raised their hand to the Constitution?
The ones elected are.
Is the sheriff elected?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Who oversees the land development as far as the engineer for the county?
Well, we have a county planner, and then we also have, from our engineering, we have our highway engineer.
No, but he says he doesn't take care of no land development law.
Well, he doesn't authorize land development, but what he does is he makes sure that certain requirements for example, public roadways meet the definition.
Land development goes beyond roadways.
Well, that's well, you asked about an engineer. So
But he doesn't take care of, there's 8 chapters in your land development plus stormwater management and
Yes.
shoreline management.
Yes.
You do not have anyone that oversees that.
Yes, we do.
Who is that engineer?
Huh?
This board oversees.
Yeah, well, yeah, the board does, for one thing.
What are your top 4 most important rules or law pertaining to land development when you oversee a permitting?
Well, a permitting process, it does that. It goes through a process. There's an application that's done when you do a permit, and then it goes through, and it's typically on a development issue. It goes through our planning department, and the planning department, the planning director reviews it, and if the request meets all of the current zoning regulations, for example, then it's approved to move forward. If it requires something in addition to what the zoning requirements require, then that requires a special permit condition. Matt, is that pretty accurate?
So you allow people to get gut and tear the land on special protected, I live on a special protected natural environmental lake. There is no law out there. People do whatever they want, and they have been for 5 years. I've been trying to stop it. Yeah, I mean, digging on steep slopes. I mean, people don't understand this winter, those people coming down that hill, man, are gonna take some kids out. They're gonna take out families. It's 40 feet in elevation coming straight down. All that muck and slop going into other people's property, into the lake. It's 100% illegal. I just want the sheriff department to know, this winter, they coming down that hill, kids should be able to walk to a school bus and not be afraid of a vehicle coming down this slope when it's iced up.
I think you've been to this board several times regarding this issue.
Not really, sir. It
I
don't
believe you
get resolved, sir.
Well, I think from our standpoint and from the planning department, I think we've looked at and done what we can. I think anything that you have, because I think this kind of goes into your property, and I think your recourse is not before this board now, it would be before a court.
Who's the county attorney that oversees all the regulations that are in? I mean, I've given.
Our county attorney is Brian Melton, I think you know that, but.
Well, I get that.
Yeah.
But who's overseeing all the statutes of these laws to make sure the people that have just started these jobs are doing it right according to law?
Yeah.
I mean, I found out about the sheriff's department law. I've been in the court 9 times for doing nothing, my wife and I.
Okay.
Can somebody explain that? In 3 years? Because people are building on the land that we're paying taxes on. How does that work? 3/4 of an acre of our land is being built on that we pay taxes on. And the
I know with
county
land issues, if there are land disputes, you have the ability to take that to court.
Well, you were the people that took it from us, so I gotta take you to court?
You had that surveyed, this board did not.
There is no surveys.
This board did not take your land.
Well, then give me it back.
You have that ability to take a land dispute to court.
I think we've gone through this before with you. You've been here before to this board on this exact same issue.
I have not been to on my land.
Yes,
My
you have.
tax, how can I pay taxes on the land 38 years and now I don't own it?
I don't know how you don't, if you owned it before, what would have changed? You must have a warranty deed and the title of your land, don't you?
We have a warranty deed, yes.
What would change? What would change that?
We've been paying taxes on 2.41 acres for 38 years.
Thank you. Matt, do you want to address this?
And now we're down to 1.8 acres. That's 3/4 of an acre land of lake property. And I'm supposed to just walk away?
Do you want to let Matt is here?
So, Mr. Burnett's property, before he purchased it, was split. The lot that he was on was split into 2 lots in the late 1970s, probably 1978. It was split by a deed, so it was just a meets and bounds thing, split. There was no survey done in 1970 that I can find, and I've spent several hours looking and researching this. On the, I guess, the property description on his tax statements, it basically says that the property description is 2.41 acres southeasterly, 328 feet of lot 17, right? Yeah, 17. And so, but if you were to look at his warranty deed, the legal description in the warranty deed from when Mr. Burnett and his wife purchased this property in the 80s, it was conveyed to them. If you were to draw out that legal description, it is not 2.41 acres. It's more like 1.82 acres. So there is definitely an error, and I think that it's a legitimate thing that Mr. Burnett has about possibly being overassessed for his property, being assessed for 2.41 acres when it was just essentially an error back in whenever they split the property back in the 70s. It's just always been assessed at that acreage. And so the question of is there a missing difference between the 2.41 and the 1.8? Not that I can find.
Right. This is quite a bit for under citizens to be heard here. This should be an actual agenda item then.
Sure.
And if that's the case, where we have some discrepancies in the land when it comes to when it comes to him being taxed for certain, if there is that the difference, then we need to get Nancy Gunderson involved, and we need to and get it straightened out. So I'll give Mr. Burnett credit for that. I think if there is that issue, we need to resolve that, and if you've been overtaxed, we need to fix it. But for us to do it here right now on under citizens to be heard, that this isn't the place to do that. I'm going to ask Matt that you dive into this further, and maybe we can have this brought back to our board just for an update. And
Sure.
And obviously, we need to correct any issues regarding how a property was taxed. All right? Is that okay with you, Mr. Mann?
That's fine, I do have one.
Okay, well, let's get to your last question here, and we need to be brief on it, though, because we have a real full schedule today, so. Okay, what's your next question?
When land development law changes, we have a restriction of 90,000 square feet on our protected lake. And in the 70s, when this thing was plotted, it was 16,000. So all these lots are 17,000 in front on the plat. Well, for some reason in the 90s, Clay County started handing out some from Fisher Surveying out of Fergus Falls that totally misleads what the property distances are and leads are. So, people can get a 25% break on that 90,000, that brings you down to 65,500. None of those lots around that lake are buildable anymore. Why is Clay County still giving permits out?
So this is also in our land development code, and this is in the Minnesota State Shoreland rules. If a lot already has a structure on it, you can get a building permit for another structure so long as it meets all the setbacks. If it doesn't meet the setbacks, you can try and get a variance. It also has to be under that 25% impervious surface coverage. If there's a lot that doesn't have any buildings on it or structures on it, if it meets 75% of the dimensional standards, and you can meet all the setbacks, you can build something on it. If not, you can try and get a variance to build something on it. And that's something that the Board of Adjustment would decide. They would be the body that grants that, or approves or denies the variance, essentially. So recently they did one on Lake 15, and they approved the variance. They felt that it was a reasonable request. And that is all in our development code, and it's in state law as well. One thing that's also in our development code, and I'll be brief about this too, is if you have 2 or more contiguous lots that are owned by the same person, it's the duty of the county to try and get those folks to combine those lots into a single lot to make that lot more, less substandard and more in line with the development code. So that's really the only tool that we have for dealing with these smaller lots that were platted back in the 60s and the 70s, is to try and find opportunities to combine them.
All right.
Well, we'll get together.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
give me a buzz?
Yep.
Yeah, Matt, if you would be in touch with Mr. Burnett then.
Sooner the better. I gotta get my 7th back surgery, so I gotta get some things buttoned up for my family.
Yep.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Matt. All right, while you're here, let's just move, I'm gonna move right into your agenda edition, Matt.
Sure.
While you're here. And this is, I guess we just gotta do a little bit of cleaning up on a previous action that the board took.
Yeah, this was an action that the board you all took in May, approving or going forward with the auction or the sale of that property. That happened in early August, and we were able to find a buyer for that, that property. One thing that the title company needs essentially is just a resolution from the board. Just saying that, you know, you okayed the sale of or approved the sale of the property back in May. And we also just added some language saying, you know, how much we sold it for and who we sold it to as well.
So the resolution 2021-38, you've reviewed it, and you think that's,
Yep, and I've had the attorney at the title company review it as well. And
right? All right, what's the board's wishes? We have a request to approve resolution 2021-38. Any questions?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Moser, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, Matt.
thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
I've real quickly signed that resolution so you can take it with you.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll move on then to approval of the bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from August 10th. Yes.
I do have one correction on page 7.
Okay.
It says, under the presentation of family service and security plan, that I was involved in the planning process for that plan. I was not. I don't want to get credit for something I didn't.
Okay.
I would move to approve with that correction.
All right. We have motion? Motion by Commissioner Kaylee, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried, and Colleen will make that correction for those minutes. All right. All right. Kathy, COVID-19. And Jamie is here again as well. Good morning.
Becky is also
It's
here.
nice to see you back again. You're just.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner.
Even with all of the hard work you're doing, you can still come in here with a smile.
Yeah.
And you did, yeah, right. And you did.
That smile is some tears.
Yeah, well, you know what, we're still proud of our public health department here, so. All right, you did give us a handout, so we got
did,
everything
yes.
here, and
We thought we just. And so I guess Jamie, you'll start with.
Amy, good morning.
Good morning. So we'll look at the data again. Basically, for August, as of August 23rd, we have 168 active cases in Clay County, and you can see the comparison across the river in Cass County, and same thing for Minnesota and North Dakota. And just to point out that 2 board meetings ago, when we were here and shared that data July 6th, we were at 11 active cases. So we continue to see that climb. In the data that we have for positive cases for Clay County, we can see that there were 6 people that were hospitalized between August 15th and August 21st, so that would be last week. And then just want to note that we are seeing an uptick in the hospitalizations on the Minnesota and North Dakota side based on the data that we have been getting. We'll go to the next slide.
Is that data, are you provided data whether those people were vaccinated or not?
No, that what we,
Not right away, anyway.
the cases that, the 6 cases that Becky is looking at in terms of the data were hospitalized because of COVID, and that's all the information we have on that. Okay, so looking at the next slide, the Clay County active cases by age, and these are the current active cases that we have in the breakdown. And you'll see we're seeing an uptick compared to last week in that 0 to 4 and the 5. So our younger kids who are not vaccinated is what we're seeing an increase in. And then, you know, what we have been seeing is our highest overall is in that the 20s age group. We've got a a peak of 21 in our 30 to 34 for this last, for our current active cases. We'll go to the next slide. And looking at the cases reported by the test date on this, the Clay County cases by week, and then the next slide shows our cumulative cases, because we had, we didn't have that slide last time, but we'll show you that this time. But we've got just the one case on the 22nd, but the week of the 15th through the 21st is the 123 cases there. So just showing that we are continuing to see an increase in those cases. And then the next slide, and that's the one that we have the cumulative cases. So it's more of a visual than anything. You can kind of see over time where we have had our rises, and we are rising again now. And then we'll go to the next slide. And then this slide is the doses of vaccine that public health has been providing, so our total of 15,234. And then just to show you too visually that we're continuing to have an increase in vaccinations that are being provided by public health. So on 8/15, it was 168 that week. And then we had an event at MSUM on Saturday, and we had a total of 60 students that were vaccinated.
How many?
60.
Oh, good, okay.
And then do you want me to talk now about the vaccine clinics, or should I come back to that?
Sure, yeah. you can
Okay.
both those down.
I'm going to just skip to my notes here real quick just to tell you what's going on this week. But in the public health at the Family Service Center on Thursday, we have a clinic we're offering Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, and that is from 1 to 5 at the Family Service Center. And then otherwise, today, we are going to be at Concordia providing vaccine. We will be at the homeless shelters providing vaccine tomorrow, at Horizon Middle School on Wednesday, and then I think that's it for the week.
Isn't there one at DGF
Dilworth,
this morning?
DGF, pardon me?
DGF this morning?
DGF, yes. Our school nurses that are employees of Clay County Public Health in the school district are providing vaccine at DGF this morning. I think that's 9 to 11. Okay, so then I'll go back to the slides.
Can I ask a question about the toast?
Yes, absolutely, go ahead.
Just want to circle back maybe to vaccine, of what you have, and if you're able to use the doses. We talked before about not wanting to open a vial if you weren't going to be able to finish it. Has that been an issue? Do you still have folks that you're able to utilize all the vaccine that you're getting?
We are doing our very best to do that. What we have been doing at the end of the clinics at the Family Service Center is checking with the homeless shelter and with corrections, the jail and juvenile detention center to vaccinate. So that's kind of what we're doing with our extra doses. MSUM this weekend, the staff did a fantastic job of literally stopping a volleyball game to see if there was anyone left. And, so yeah, we're doing the very best we can to use every dose we have.
And I say that because I was trying to track down a second dose from one of my children, and that Pfizer dose is difficult to find. And so we had gone to 6 different pharmacies, and because didn't have a standing appointment, weren't able to get something. So I think people should know that if you're trying to find something on a Friday or a Monday, good luck, right? I mean,
Yes.
really. And so I think that's one maybe frustration just from what I observed being in those different pharmacies. There were people that were ready and willing to have a vaccination that weren't able to for whatever reason. And I know that sometimes it's tricky just to get there. And
That is definitely a barrier for the vaccine, and, the healthcare providers are saying the same thing. So if you have one person that's coming in, and that to open a vial for that one person, you're going to waste the rest of the doses. And so it is a challenge. It is making it more difficult, for sure, so.
But I will say that I called Public Health's phone number and received a phone call right away from one of your staff to let me know about the upcoming vaccine clinics. And so continued thanks to them for making sure that they can connect folks with the vaccine if they so choose.
And we do that also, just, when people do call in, we put their name on a list. And so when we have enough people for that, Moderna or Pfizer bottle, then we give them all a call too. So we do try to do that every week for our Thursday clinics.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then, the next slide is just looking at that state data again. The number of people with at least one dose of vaccine, and then at 69.9%, and then those with a completed vaccine. And it's just kind of looking at the age categories and the percentage of individuals that are vaccinated. So we're climbing with that 12 to 15 and 16 to 17-year-olds, but still our highest is in that 65-plus age group. So yeah, that's about it.
Becky's going to talk about the breakthrough cases.
Morning. So again, breakthrough cases continue to be very rare. This is the data that's put out by the Minnesota Department of Health on a weekly basis, and that is available for the public to view as well. We are seeing a little bit of an increase in the number of breakthrough cases, so it's at 0.321%, but still a very, very small percentage of people that are vaccinated that wind up becoming infected. And then again, the breakthrough hospitalizations and breakthrough deaths are negligible. I mean, very, very minimal. I would expect, the breakthrough cases to increase a little bit week by week, just because there is so much community spread right now, and then just a game of numbers as well. So the more people that get vaccinated, there's more people that can potentially get infected too. And then this is the CDC level of community transmission. It's just a side-by-side of the past several weeks, and you can see the progression of community transmission for us in Clay County. So July 26th through August 1st, we were at yellow, which is moderate spread. 2 weeks ago, we were at substantial, so that orange color, and now this past week, the most updated data, we are at high transmission, so that red color.
When we say high, we used to always be looking at the positivity rate. How are we compared to months ago when we saw our previous peaks?
I don't think we have that data as readily available.
Like,
We have,
CDC
excuse me, I didn't mean to
Yes,
interrupt
yes.
you. We do have on this for the positivity rate at the testing site, which is probably not the whole encompassing information, because if you're going to the testing site, you're more than likely not feeling great. But we do have what the positivity rates there were based on volume, but not for November, which was our spike, but you can kind of compare that.
And that's a positivity, that's correct, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo. That's positivity rates of those that were tested at that site. So,
just
is that
that particular site.
correct?
But in November 16th, when we were seeing our spikes, Minnesota had a cumulative positivity rate of 6.3 statewide, but our 14-day case rate was 123. And so I think what maybe Commissioner Campbell is going to is, what is our 14-day case rate? Because we need to be able to monitor same for same, so it allows us to make decisions going forward. And I agree that map is different in the last month than we've seen the past 18 months. So it's hard to compare, maybe.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, that the CDC community transmission is, again, just one metric. So we have to take into account everything. So that's just one metric of community transmission, but we also have to look at our community and what's happening with vaccinations, what our hospitalizations are with COVID. So there's a whole bigger picture that we have to take into account.
All right, we have some more questions. I'll let Becky finish her presentation here.
The only thing I was going to add about the level of community transmission, so the CDC uses they look at the new cases per 100,000 people over the last 7 days, but also that percent positivity over the past 7 days. So they're kind of using a combination of both of those metrics to get their rating of community transmission. So it is, but you are correct, it's not the same as that 14-day case rate, so it's hard to, it's not apples to apples that we're comparing. And then the big news yesterday, I'm sure you all heard that the Pfizer vaccine for those that are 16 years and older has been officially approved by the FDA, so it is fully licensed like other vaccines that we routinely give to our children and the rest of the community. The emergency use authorization continues for those in the age group of 12 to 15 years, and also for the booster doses or the third dose that we've heard about recently. And then just a note that public health is not yet authorized to administer those doses. So anyone who's questioning whether they would be considered immunocompromised, we are asking that they reach out to their healthcare provider.
So all those people that were waiting for FDA approval, they now have it.
It's here, yes.
Yes, and Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we expect also, what we're hearing is Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be next.
I would assume it'll follow the same sequence as when they were previously approved. I suppose that's the process that it takes to have that study complete that gives the FDA their comfort.
Right. So just another additional process, but they certainly anticipate that will follow. The approval for the children that there's no vaccine approved for yet, the 5 to 11-year-olds, we don't expect that will happen for a number of months.
Oh,
There's still, it's quite a process yet to approve that for that age group, so, it may change, but it sounds like that it will be a number of months before we get that vaccine for that age group. And I think that's it for the slides we did. As Commissioner Moja mentioned, we do have the testing activities. On the backside is the month of January, so we have January through August. I believe I mentioned at the last board meeting, I verified that this testing site will be open through the end of the year, so that's really good news. It will continue to have a testing site located in Moorhead. There is also a testing site in Fargo, and they certainly accept Minnesota residents, as we, at this testing site, accept North Dakota residents. So you have the ability to get tested as need be. And then there will be testing kits, I believe, that the students, the schools will have available to them, as well as the colleges, so. So as far as, the masking, that's kind of the hot topic, as everyone knows. We've met with all of the school superintendents. We started our superintendent meetings, and so we talked with them last week about what they're going to be recommending in their schools, what they anticipate. It's kind of all over the map as far as what the schools, some of the schools are not going to make any recommendations. They're just going to allow teachers and students to wear masks if they choose to. So there's not going to be recommendations. And then, so it's a variety of things. Some are making recommendations, and of course, the school board last night in Moorhead is mandating masks. So the schools are kind of still working through some of their processes, but I think some of the schools will be starting with an optional masking for teachers and students, and that's what their decision will be. So we'll see as things evolve. So it's not consistent across the schools in Clay County, obviously, and across the state for sure. So we talked about last week, MDH and CDC are still recommending masks for people in public settings, those vaccinated and unvaccinated. I don't have that slide, but that was what we had put up last week. And so they haven't changed They are not mandating masks, they're recommending masks in public settings for those vaccinated and unvaccinated. So going with the science and all the information, you know, this board can make a decision about what you'd like to do, but my recommendation would be to recommend masks in our public setting. Now, keep in mind that my informal information is that Clay County employees, I know for a number of our departments, we're at 90% vaccination rate. So we're doing well with vaccinations. We continue to offer that. For those that are maybe waiting for this full approval, we may encourage them to get vaccinated. We just did a large mass testing at one of our homeless shelters because across the state, that's been high-risk areas, and there's been a number. There was one shelter that was 85% positive. It's good to know that most of those 185 tests were negative. So we're really doing a good job of also reaching out, getting those individuals vaccinated as much as they'll accept vaccination. It's still optional for them. And then I think really the high-risk areas. So vaccination is number one. We want to get people vaccinated. That's just to get out of this pandemic. We need people to get vaccinated. That is number one priority. And then the additional measures come along with that. So the social distancing and masking and cleaning, but number one is vaccination. So public health's mission is to really get the high-risk areas are really the schools. When you think about those kids that are 5 to 11 years old, they can't get the vaccine. They won't be able to get the vaccine for a number of months potentially. And they're in class all day. It's going to be all in-person learning to begin with. So really those are areas to really think about. Those are really going to be the high-risk areas because of that group, and they're not able to, maybe they'll social distance 3 feet, but they're not able to do any more than that. And the colleges. So some of the college campuses are requiring vaccinations now for those kids in sports, and some in the dorms. So we're really, that's, as Jamie mentioned, we've been to MSU a number of times providing vaccinations on site. We'll continue to provide vaccinations when they want us to come back. We're going to provide vaccinations at Concordia as much as they need us to, and also to M-State. And then we're providing vaccinations on site to the schools. So we really are pushing, getting as many as we can vaccinate for those that are the unvaccinated, that are at the most risk. So the reason why I say, we can recommend masks, if this board chooses to, for Clay County, we know we're not in a high risk. Our WIC program is still under a federal waiver, so we're not seeing face-to-face. We are not doing any WIC face-to-face. It's all remote. Our home visiting programs, we're not seeing face-to-face. So if there's children in the home, we're not going into the homes. If they choose to meet with us, we've been, they had the option at one point to meet outside, masking, 6-foot distancing. We're still saying masking of the unvaccinated, so we're requiring masking of the unvaccinated. So we have a number of programs that we aren't doing face-to-face. So when I say vaccination is the most important and the percentage of people vaccinated, our county employees have been really pretty good. There's still a few departments that aren't at 90%, but we're hoping to get there now.
Well, it's encouraging the fact, and I was going to ask, I was hoping Darren would be, and maybe you have an idea. I think, when we start talking about what we should or shouldn't do at the campus level, I'm kind of curious as to what level of a positivity rate might we have within our own employees, within our facilities. And I don't know if Darren or if you have any of that information that we can monitor to see how that is.
I think it would be pretty challenging, number one.
I know it's
They'd
a
have
lot
to
of,
go through all the employees, but also we have employees that have been vaccinated outside of our county.
okay.
So it would be really challenging to find out exactly, we don't have a scientific percent.
We recently opened up all of our facilities, and I know you mentioned that most of our county staff and public health and in the areas of social service, they're not doing the home visits where there's children involved, right?
Correct.
Or unless, I would imagine, unless it's a a case of
Yeah, child neglect. or-
child neglect or something that would still need to be done. You know, with that being said, do you know, do we have a lot of clientele that are coming in, for example, to the Family Service Center? And how do you feel we should respond to those people who, I have concern that I don't want to have an additional way for our employees when they're at work with that outside source coming in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and right now, it's, you know, if they're unvaccinated, we ask them to wear a mask, because they are the highest risk. I'm not sure how many are coming in. I can't answer for social services. I'm not sure how many they're coming in face-to-face. Do you have any idea, Jamie?
I don't, but I can say for public health, you know, of course, we have the clinic, and we are asking people to wear masks when they come into the clinic. We have people that come in for Becky's department, licensing for food, pools, and lodging, and they are coming in, and we have clients that are bringing in documents, so it's really short contact. Typically, they come in, they bring something in or drop something off. We had a conversation yesterday at a part of a joint public health social service meeting, and there was a discussion about really trying to limit the contact into the homes with kids. And so both of our departments are looking at, and really making sure that the parents, if we are making a visit, that they have an informed decision. So we're sharing information on what the risks are. We are wearing masks if they are requesting that we be in the home. And that does happen occasionally. The clients are they want us to come and see their home and their child. And so it's an unusual circumstance that we do that, but we're being very thorough in that.
I was just going to add that Lakes and Prairies has added to their operating procedures masks as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very informative. Thank you again for being here, and you'll continue to monitor and do we we still want them back every week? Okay. All right, Kathy, I think it's our board's wishes to have you come back each week until further notice, and if something develops that's needs urgent attention, be sure to let Steve know. And yeah. Commissioner Cayley.
Thank you, all three of you, for this very thorough presentation, and thank you for all of the changes that have been made to keep the public and our employees safe. There's been a tremendous amount of work done, and I love how there's still access to services that doesn't require face-to-face necessarily, but we're still providing those services. So thank you, public health, thank you, social services, and all of our other departments for that. I do think that given all of our surrounding counties are red, except for Welcome, who is substantial, they're in orange. And all of our students are coming back to school and moving in. And again, a tremendous amount of work has been done with vaccination, but masking is important and social distancing is important too. And I think we should give some weight to those CDC recommendations and honor that. And so I would like to see us institute a mask requirement for county buildings in public spaces where social distancing cannot be maintained. And that would be in place for 14 days, consecutive days of the move back to moderate or low community transmission, unless we receive a different recommendation from public health. To me, this is not a political decision. This is just a loving your neighbor decision. We are a really caring community. You know, if there's a blizzard and your neighbor needs help shoveling their driveway, we get out there and we help shovel the driveway. And when I say community, again, I want to reiterate that I mean the whole county. I don't mean just Moorhead. This is a small thing that we can do to help take care of our neighbors. And again, it adds weight to those CDC recommendations that all
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Cayley, second by Commissioner Ebbing. Any further discussion?
Could I get a definition of that motion again?
Yeah, I move that we institute a mask requirement for all public spaces and county-owned buildings, regardless of vaccination status of the person entering, in areas where social distancing cannot be maintained, and that requirement would remain in place for, until we have 14 consecutive days of a return to moderate or low transmission in our county. Pending, requirement from health authorities.
Thank you.
I guess I want to know what that definition of moderate to low is. I've seen high and I've seen substantial, and what is that a category by the CDC?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted.
Yep, they list their 2 indicators at the bottom on their website that shows the community transmission map. And so low transmission level would be new cases per 100,000 people in the past 7 days, but they also use it in conjunction with the positivity rates, so below 5%. Moderate would be 10 to 49 cases per 100,000, and a positivity rate of 5 to 7.9. Substantial is 50 to 99.9, and then the percent positivity rate 8 to 9.9. High is greater than 100 cases per 100,000 people in the past 7 days, and positivity rate greater than 10.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I said this a little earlier in my comments, I just want to make sure that we're being consistent in whatever method we use to discern actions moving forward. And the part I struggle with is the transmission rate has not necessarily been the rate at which we've made decisions previously. We've taken CDC, Minnesota Department of Health, and Clay County Public Health all together, the 3 of them, to make sure that we make decisions. And, I just don't have enough history knowing what the transmission data is. And so I kind of struggle with that. And maybe to go back further is having children in the Moorhead Public School District last year, we knew that if cases, the 14-day case rate was 14 to 20, it was this, or 25 to 50, this is what this means. And so I kind of struggle not having a good grasp on what the transmission, different categories are. Have we even been in those lower 2 categories in the last 6 months? I don't know that. I mean, so I kind of do struggle with that. And then going forward, I also struggle that we as a board spent millions of dollars of federally allocated funds to make sure that we put provisions in place to allow us to safely move forward out of COVID. And so, I'm not trying to make this a mask, no mask thing. I truly feel that we put parameters in place that keep our staff safe, that keep the public safe. We have the ability to have a remote work environment for folks that may not feel safe. We also have the ability for folks to work if they're in quarantine, or citizens that may not want to come in face-to-face can do virtually everything remotely. And so I do really struggle with the inconsistency in how we choose what a mandate would look like just based on the data that we use. And also the fact that we set our county buildings up to really be as safe as possible. Furthermore, I don't know what is a squad car, a public space? Is that because that's a shared space, if they pick someone up, does that mean that our deputies wear masks all the time? I just think there are too many gray areas for us to create a policy right now that, personally.
Obviously, I've had experiences where I know this is a real deal. COVID is a real deal, and I take it seriously. And at the same time, I still have to weigh everything in different ways. And Becky, one of my key concerns, it was one of your very first comments, is regarding the breakthrough rates, and they're very low. You said it yourself, and the numbers prove that. I'm very concerned about, and that's why I asked a few questions earlier, I'm very concerned about our people and our buildings. But I am extremely pleased to hear that we're probably looking in that 90% range that are vaccinated. And when you take that into consideration within our buildings, and that's why I was kind of interested to know, okay, if we're going to have something within our buildings, what's going on in our buildings now to make us want to do that? And I don't, going to kind of what Commissioner Mojo said, I don't have much evidence that there's a lot of transmission happening within our facilities. And again, it goes to what we've done over the past year to make sure we protect our people. All you got to do is go over to the new DMV, and you can see how significant that is in protecting our employees and also protecting the patients that are in there doing the social distancing. So there's an awful lot of things that we've done. I also know, personally for me, wearing a mask, I have a hard time with it. Not that I'm against it. It's that when it comes to me, I'm very uncomfortable, and my breathing is impacted by it too. And so there's that component of it. I do have concern in regards to the public coming in that, we don't know to what level their vaccination rate is. So I do have that concern. And from what I gather already, the recommendations that you have out there would suggest that if somebody comes to visit one of our people, whether it's in public health, I would imagine if you have citizens coming into public health or if they're going into our social services, those people are being asked to wear masks, are they not?
Correct. We for sure ask if they're vaccinated, so we want to know that, and definitely require a mask. If they're not vaccinated, they're required to have a mask.
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm struggling with this one from the standpoint of what we've done, and I think we have some county employees who would probably like to see it, and then we have some county employees who feel comfortable the way it is now. So, Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I seconded this because this is a discussion we need to have. A lot of the provisions, the things we've done in our facilities over the last 18 months will provide a degree of social distancing and barricade people between each other to where I don't think all our employees are going to have to wear masks all day. I had an eye appointment yesterday, and I sat there with a mask on for 2.5 hours. I don't like it, but it didn't kill me. If I get COVID, it could. Or if I've been immunized, but if I shed COVID virus and I'm asymptomatic and don't know I'm doing it, I could kill somebody. The chances of that happening are remote, but they're there. And I just feel inside our facility and under the scrutiny and direction of our supervisors, so people can have a space where they don't have to sit there with a mask, but where if they can't maintain social distancing, they have to wear a mask. I just think it's prudent. We saw a very courageous decision by our school board last night. They were brave enough to admit in their initial analysis they feel they were wrong. And for elected people, that's a hard thing to do. But I admire them for what they did. I think looking at these numbers we've seen this morning, and the fact that another variant may come out of what we're looking at now, one that can be bigger and badder. We need to get ahead of this. People need to get their immunization, and to some degree, we have to use masks. So that's my conclusion on this. I hear my fellow commissioners, and I know we've done a lot here to try to limit spread. If there's a little bit more we can do, I think it's worth it.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I just would like to clarify that one district in our community chose that. We are a county with several districts, and not all of those districts have done that. And I don't think it's about saying that they were wrong. What they said at their first meeting, where they chose what the policy would be, is they would follow the CDC, Minnesota Department of Health, and Clay County Public Health. And if that were to change, then their recommendation would change, which it did in the last week, and that's what they decided. They did say that if the case rate goes to those same parameters that I talked about, that then it would be removed. And so I think it's important to remember that we're not Moorhead, just Moorhead. We're all of Clay County, and so it's taking all of Clay County into account. And at this point, personally, I will always give folks the opportunity to choose in which they want to make decisions. And I think that putting the parameters in that we have really protected staff, and I believe will continue to protect the public.
Can I, Kathy, can I ask you a couple questions in terms of, obviously I think of our outlying facilities like the highway department and some of those places, and it's clear that in those areas, the resolution or the motion that was made by Commissioner Cayley just wouldn't apply. It just wouldn't apply to certain areas. So I want to kind of want to dive into primarily the Family Service Center and our law enforcement buildings as well. And to what level that you know of, would there be areas where we wouldn't meet the ability to social distance? And including our new government center.
Well, I
put
think,
you on the spot here, but
yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I think, for example, in my department, we really still use remote when we have meetings, because we really don't have meeting room space where we can keep distanced. So our meetings I know Jamie does a lot of remote meetings. She has so many nurses, so they can be in their offices and still remote. We do our interviews remotely still with new employees or applicants for employees. So we really don't, if we're trying to get a number of people in our meeting rooms, it wouldn't work because we don't have enough space to social distance. I don't believe there's any gatherings or many gatherings in the lobby area of that Family Service Center building. Usually people are coming in and going to where they need to be. We're not seeing we're certainly not seeing the quantity of people coming in just because we have so many programs where we're still doing remote. So I can't, I don't know that people are sitting in that, the area where the vending machines are. I don't believe anyone are congregating there. So not sure. Most people have their individual offices. So if they would have a meeting where they can't 6-foot distance, we're still telling them that, especially the unvaccinated who are at the highest risk, that you need to, if there's anyone that's unvaccinated, they need to wear a mask. the areas that probably, like the detox and the juvenile detention, certainly are areas where we're attending to the needs of those individuals, but they've always been under a different requirement because they need to be conscientious of the people they're serving, whether they know if they're vaccinated or not. So they continue to wear the masks. Our tenant in our Family Service Center building is the dental area, they mask. Obviously, they require
And they
that.
require their clientele that comes in to wear masks as well.
Correct.
Already.
And so the meeting rooms, if we can social distance and stay 6 feet away, and then the unvaccinated wear a mask, but we're just not doing a lot of that. We're still doing so much remote meetings. So unless
I guess that's
colleagues
what
have
I'm
anything to-
trying to get to. It just seems to me that within our facilities and within what we're doing, we're already accomplishing a lot of this. You know,
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we're certainly happy to, if there's some other data that would be helpful, I'm putting Becky
Yeah.
on the spot.
Well,
But she's, she can dig into some further data, if that would be helpful. You talked about the positivity rate and 7-day case rate. We're happy to provide whatever we can.
I think back to the 90% of our employees who have did the right thing and had their vaccination and putting a requirement on them within a facility where the ability to have the transmission of a virus, even if they were to carry it, is probably extremely low. And again, it goes to what we've already done with our ability to social distance. You look at this room, I'm hoping everybody's 6 feet apart. I look back there, it's pretty close, but should be. But I'm thankful that this motion's been brought up, and I don't know that I'm going to support it today, but I want a little bit more information. And I would actually like to see Steve bring this. I mean, our management team has reviewed things before and talked about issues, and I think the management team should talk this over, Steve, within your management meetings that you have, and let that play out based on what Commissioner Cayley and Commissioner Ebinger have proposed here, and see, does it go too far? Does it not go far enough? I think having the input from management, and of course they hear from their individual staffs amongst them, and as the sooner you can do that, and if it comes back with some additional data that really shows the concern, then I'll support it. But I at this point, I just don't. I'm kind of in the camp with Commissioner Mojo's comments here, based on what we've done, and we were extremely aggressive in the areas that we've done to prevent the spread of COVID within our facilities, to the tune of millions of dollars. So I've made my comments. We haven't heard from Commissioner Gross. I don't know if he cares to comment or not, but good morning, Frank.
At this point, we've got these people here recommending to us what's been necessary. We've been following what they've been recommending, and I don't see why we should oppose that. I fully support the mask. As soon as they say we should put masks on, I'm going to support that fully.
And right now,
They're not recommending it yet. So.
Yeah, Commissioner Cayley.
It is recommended that they're wearing masks, it's just not a requirement.
Not mandated.
It's not mandated.
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because you said, it's very unlikely that if somebody is vaccinated and asymptomatic could spread if they were infected, and I just want to get a clarification.
Oh, I don't.
Very
I don't know that I said that.
So Becky, can you, talk about transmissibility from a vaccinated person of the Delta variant and what that is looking like?
Sure, so there has been data to support that someone that is vaccinated, if they become infected, they are able to spread it to others. There was a recent outbreak investigation on the East Coast in Massachusetts. I don't know if you all are aware of that, where there was a lot of spread from the vaccinated individuals to other vaccinated individuals and unvaccinated. So yes, it is possible.
The only thing I referred to was the breakthrough rates. That's the only thing I referred to. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing
Roll
none?
call vote, please.
Oh, okay, we have roll call vote, please. Yes.
I've got multiple emails that Commissioner Casey's microphones have not been working for whatever reason. So I don't know if we want to make a recommendation or what the motion was.
Did you get her a new one?
Try to move the line. I don't know if there's something happening.
Just get her your, give,
We've done it multiple times, and so,
You would just like me to restate my motion?
yeah. But that one didn't pick up word last. So.
Well, what's going on there?
Me too. Okay, we'll try with multiple mics, see what happens. Are we hearing me now? Okay. My motion was that we institute a mask requirement for all county-owned buildings in public spaces where social distancing cannot be maintained, and that this requirement would remain in place until we have 14 consecutive days of low or moderate transmission in Clay County, or until we get a different recommendation from County Public Health.
All right, so we've had that motion and that second, and we've had our discussion, and Commissioner Gross has asked for a roll call vote. Clean?
Commissioner Gross?
No.
Commissioner Mojo?
no.
Commissioner Campbell?
No.
Commissioner Ebinger? Commissioner Kaylee?
Now, having said that, I still would like to go to Steve, and I would like you to have this as a topic of discussion for the management group of Clay County. And so you're getting all the management involved, and I want to be able to hear back what they think. And obviously, they're going to know of what the proposed motion was, as Commissioner Kaylee had it now. And, you know, if they share the same concerns within their, we might hear something different from Highway than we might hear from other buildings too. So I want to know that. I don't want, because I voted no today, to think that I don't think COVID is an issue. Trust me, I know COVID is an issue. And I'm still looking at our active case rates, and I know it's even doubled in the time we've talked about this. At the same point, it is still far cry from what it was, you know, when we were having. The sad part about it is we've spent a significant amount of time this morning talking about masks, and masks isn't the solution to this problem. Vaccines are the solution to this problem. And I know that there's a significant part of our population who don't want to be told to be vaccinated. I get that. I just want to point out the fact that the majority of new cases of COVID are coming from unvaccinated people. The significant number of our hospitalizations, Becky, I think you would agree with me, are coming from unvaccinated people. And if we want to beat this, that's where we beat it. And these are nice comfort things that we try to do. But until then, until those people are vaccinated, I had a conversation with Commissioner Ebinger before this started, and we could end up having, if those people don't get vaccinated, we could have different variants showing up and going to those people unvaccinated, and we could end up we could be wearing a mask for the next 30 years if we don't fix this the right way. And that's my commentary for the day. Sure, yeah, Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm glad the conversations are taking place out there. Ultimately, we've been given 3 primary objectives to reach, and that's vaccine, masks, and social distancing. We've got a huge part of our population right now that has not been susceptible to severe cases of COVID that are with this variant, and that's our kids. And until we can get them vaccinated, we're going to have a lot of, it's like the same thing as every parent's found out when you got a kid in school. They come home with every bug that's out there, and it generates it. And it's a tough thing to ask them to control that at the school level. But I'll agree with Commissioner Campbell. People need to get vaccinated. And anybody hearing this, that's the primary objective we've got in keeping ourselves and keeping others safe. So I hope these conversations continue, and I hope those that are out there that haven't made a decision yet will listen. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, well, this has been a good discussion, and Kathy and Jamie and Becky, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week. And Steve, you got your kind of marching orders from, at least from me anyway, to have that management meeting. All right,
Thank you.
have a good day and continue the fight with vaccines there. All right, let's move on then. Robert, I'm sorry to, we're almost running an hour behind here. Good morning. You and Steve are here to talk about the Red River Regional Dispatch, and I'm gonna try to see if we can make up some ground here.
All right, well
We
then.
have to serve burgers.
Because you know me, I will then just turn it over to Robert.
Chair Campbell, members of the board, good morning. My name's Robert Wilson, and I am the Cass County Administrator. And before we jump into it, just really need to compliment you on the civility of that last discussion. These are tough issues that many boards are wrestling with, and appreciate your thoughtful conversations.
Thank you, and by the way, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Great to be here. Discussing the Red River Regional Dispatch Center and the items that you have for your consideration this morning. Really, I've heard a couple of questions and comments of should this sort of first discussion, informational session perhaps occurred before we were looking at this recommendation for a vendor for an architectural services. And I would just open that conversation by saying that I know even within our own board, there were so many different ideas or thoughts of what is this going to cost? What's a cost per square footage? Are we talking about $250 a square foot? Are we talking about $500 a square foot? Or what's the appropriate location? What should the size be? What configuration recommendations or what's most appropriate? The reason and the idea of getting this underway first is to just address some of those baseline assumptions and understand what is a reasonable cost estimate to be looking at. What is the needed size? What is the layout of this need to look like? So we can have some of those many other conversations that probably will be coming of what's the best location? Is it a new greenfield site? Is it renovate an existing building? How do construction costs get split out? How do operations and maintenance costs get split out? I think those are all conversations that we probably will have. I think between Clay County and Cass County, we got a pretty good model with the juvenile detention that we have in place. And not that it'll look exactly like that, but we know how to work across the river and how to get things done. So there's a lot more conversations that will go on. I think with the group that met last week that Commissioner Ebinger and Sheriff Empting were part of, I think the representation from 5 different entities is extremely collaborative, and we will have some areas I would imagine where it comes down to, how do we structure this, whether it's a governance or a cost. We'll have some serious conversations, but really what we're looking for right now at this order was brought forth for a reason. Number one, to get the base assumptions of understanding what we're looking at. We as Cass County feel like there's a reason that we should assume the fiscal agent role, really because we have the widest taxing base across the North Dakota side, and so that's certainly I think a logical way to set that up. And then your first motion there of is it a renovated site or is it a greenfield site? And that's I can tell you that's a key question that a member of our board has had too. So that's really the reason I'm before you today, and Steve may have other comments he wants to add, but I'll be quiet and answer any questions you have.
All right. So what are you looking for from us today, Steve and Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. But before you today, there are 3 specific requests that came out of the meeting that Commissioner Ebinger and Sheriff Empting were, as Mr. Wilson mentioned, the first agenda item is looking for your agreement or motion to move forward with having some of the discussions about what is the best way to move forward from a new build or a remodel. The second piece of that would be as Cass County has offered the willingness to be the fiscal host. They have reached out as part of that discussion to all of the entities, financial departments who agree in principle that if with the support of their boards or councils, that Cass would be would make sense for them to be the fiscal agent in the project. And then as part of that meeting last week that Mr. Wilson mentioned, there was an RFQ that went out for architectural services. And they did interview 5 different businesses, and the Short, Elliott, and Hendrickson architectural firm is the firm that's being brought forward for selection, and so they would be looking for this board to support that committee's request.
I know that in regards to item number A on attachment B, the first one, Commissioner Ebinger and I have been serving in that capacity and having the discussions, and I think it's I don't know to what level they're looking for participation from each entity involved, but I'm assuming it would, I'd like to see that continue where both Commissioner Ebinger and I, that's my opinion, could have involvement with that dialogue and in looking at whether it's the renovating or new, being part of that, and then being able to come back and report to this board, because regardless, there's going to be an investment and a financial commitment on behalf of Clay County. And so I don't know, as long as Commissioner Ebinger is willing to do that, I think that we should just follow what we've been doing and moving forward. Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, I've worn many hats with the dispatch center. I've chaired it. I've been over their finance committee. I've been a member of the Board of Governors for 12 years. It has saved the taxpayers in both counties tens of millions of dollars. But we know the growth we have on both sides of the river, and there needs to be certainly an upgrading. And we're hearing concerns, particularly from rural areas of both Cass and Clay County, where there are concerns on them getting adequate coverage. And you're going to hear things like that just about any dispatch center you go to, but we've got to listen to them. And part of what I think we've realized is there's an expansion of that facility is necessary. There needs to be more staff, there needs to be more consoles. But we need to give them a facility where they can provide those services. So it's fortuitous that we have an active collaboration in place, and that we've got people who have a track record of working with each other. A lot of places around the state are trying to figure out how to collaborate and get some more bang for their buck and get the scarce workforce we've got out there employed and behind consoles. So there's a lot of challenges here, but this is a great answer to those challenges. And I'm not going to head off any conversation, but just for expedience, I'd like to make 3 motions if I
Sure,
can.
okay, sure, absolutely.
First motion is that we approve the participation in selection of a location and building or renovation of an existing building for housing the Red River Dispatch Center. Red River Regional Dispatch Center.
Can we do 3 motions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to take them one at a time. So, stop there, and that'll be your first motion,
Okay.
if that's all right?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Kaley. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. And the next one,
I move that we approve Cass County, North Dakota as the fiscal agent for the project.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Kaley, and I want to say thank you, Cass County, for being willing to do that.
Absolutely happy to do it.
And I'm sure Lori Johnson is thanking you for wanting to do it. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Commissioner Ebinger.
And the last motion I'm going to make is I move to support the recommendation of the Joint Selection Committee for Short, Elliott, and Hendrickson, SEH architectural firm, for the selection and design of a new Red River Regional Dispatch Center.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger and second by Commissioner Kaley, and I just want to point out that Commissioner Ebinger did serve on that committee that went through that interview process, right? Is that correct? Along with the sheriff, and so I am assuming that there was an agreement by them for this selection, so.
Just to clarify, the sheet that is in the memo, the 5 different firms that were interviewed, I assume that this recommendation is the top vote getter coming out of that, and it's not necessarily tied to the dollars, it's just
Correct.
totals that we have? Okay.
Correct. This was I believe this was the top vote getter of everybody who sat on that panel.
Yeah, we had 2 votes that picked a second firm that was everybody else's second choice, but they were only 1 point apart, so it wasn't unanimous, but it was certainly a consensus.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gross.
I agree that we have these committees to make recommendations to us and stuff like that, but it says we agree to support the recommendation. I mean, I don't even know what it is yet. So, I don't know how I can say I'm gonna support it if I don't know what it is. I don't know if that should be worded a little bit different. I mean, I definitely look forward to their recommendation.
Well, yeah, and I think what this motion is to kind of ratify the interview committee's recommendation to hire the architectural firm for the purpose of design.
Oh, the support.
Yeah, if I can just specify, my recommendation in this would be we support the choice of this firm, not support any decisions come after that.
This is,
I'm reading it wrong.
yeah, this is just to agree to let this particular entity go to work on designing whatever it is that we would need. All right? Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. And just to point out, Mr. Wilson, thanks for bringing this to us. We have had substantial dialogue with rural Clay County because there are concerns about the consoles and what your memo is saying, that the study showed there's an immediate need for the 10 consoles at daily peak times. And I think for this board to be able to go back to our constituents and mayors of smaller cities to say, we are in it to fix this. We are committed to making sure response times in West Fargo or Moorhead or Rusted or Georgetown are as fast as absolutely possible. I think this is the answer to make sure that we fix it. So thank you for helping us to get there.
Those are excellent comments, and I just want, let's just vote. And unless there's any further discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion carried. And Robert, so the one underlying concern still is the fact that we're looking at a design, and then there's gonna be a period of time before that's implemented and there's a new facility running. We can't wait that long to fix the problems that we're talking about. So we still need to have an operational dialogue that's gonna go on sooner regarding demands of councils and how we can solve the problems of our rural mayors and police chiefs and so on and so forth, fire departments. So we want to continue that dialogue.
Absolutely, understood.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Boy, we got to make up some ground somewhere here. Okay.
Robert.
Kirk. Good morning. Oh, wait, say, Kirk, and can I, just before you go, can I switch one thing around? We've got I'd like to take item number 5 real quickly here, so Paul doesn't have to, if that's okay with the board, okay. Paul, sorry to keep you waiting. You got a guy here that's willing to serve on behalf of the citizens in a voluntary position, so to speak, and Paul's position is up for renewal. You had taken over a 1 year, right? And now I'm glad to see you're looking and interested in serving on a 3-year term, and welcome, and here's our interview. Tell us.
Tell you about me. Use my voice.
Okay.
So we're working on that one, but so I hope you can hear me okay. Again, it's been 1 year, and I have found serving on the as a manager very rewarding and hopefully helpful to Clay County. A couple things, if I may. It's been good to have the diversion settlement done.
Yeah, right.
And I think the work of the Watershed is to make sure along the way that some of those things that were so contentious, if you will, we honor those and be attentive to them for those people left in Clay County and down in Wilkin. That being said, I'm so happy it's done. I thought there was a huge risk reward in that. $550,000 in legal fees that got paid. And that's why I really stood opposed to it. But the job was well done. I think the people behind us, the attorneys and whatnot, did a very good job. And certainly a great compromise along with the DA. On to our local things in Clay County. I guess the biggest challenge for me is learning the ditch systems. That takes a little while, I think. But the more engagement, the quicker that comes. Very comfortable as far as, and learning. how those things work. Eric Jones, Houston in Engineering, is tremendous. I think we have a very talented new administrator. Christina's doing a very, very good job. And we have another employee to pick up, but I don't think we've lost a lot of ground during this mix. The other big decision that happened is the fact that we did start our employees. Now Buffalo Red has their own employees. That also occurred in last year. So with that, I appreciate all your confidence if you do
Well,
reappoint me.
I just want to say I've known you being involved with, you know, these types of issues for a long time, and I've certainly respected your, the way you handle yourself on boards, and you bring a really good quality, I think, to that board, and I'm thankful that you're willing to do it for another 3-year term. I know you wanted to do that 1 year and see how it went, and you still working with Bowser too? Are you?
Yeah, I'm president of Soil and Water, the state association.
Yeah.
So if I may
That's-
take it
that
one
doesn't
level
If that doesn't
higher.
say something right there, that's, yeah.
So I do interact on the local government roundtable on the state level, so I'm working along with Brian Martinson, Emily Javins, and along with our executive, and so we're having a very good dialogue on that, and I will expect I'll be on that, in that group for at least another 2 years, so.
Make a motion to reappoint Paul.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Steve, this opening for the appointment was advertised, correct? And you had only one application, correct? Okay, thank you. I also want to echo, I appreciate Paul's involvement, not only from the Watershed, but also serving on the Soil and Water, because I'm on the AMC Environment and Natural Resources Committee. It certainly is helpful to have Paul advocating in St. Paul for water quality and environmental issues, and I certainly feel that it helps you in terms of the conversation that happens at the Watershed table, so I appreciate that. A side note, I have heard, and I know I've reached out to you, there's some concern, the residents are having a little bit of difficulty in terms of signing in remotely to your board meetings. And that, it's kind of my every other Monday I get texts from people, so I know I've reached out, and so just want to put that ball back in your court, however you can make that available. I know farmers appreciate it when they're weary from being in the field all day. Sometimes it's easier to just call in, so.
Take note.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carried, and thank you for your service, Paul.
Sure.
All right, now Kirk. Good morning. It's nice to see you back at it.
I'm about 80%. I appreciate it. I'm a member of the Breakthrough Club, along with 3 of my other co-patriots, so it's not a good thing, I can assure you.
Okay.
Even though I'm an old guy, yeah, it's not good. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to talk about my budget. My budget is a little different than other budgets that come before you. I have an enterprise fund, unlike a lot of other departments in the county. What an enterprise fund basically is that I run my budget similar to what a business would. It's independent of the general levy that the county has. In September, they'll move it forward. And so it's completely different than that. It's independent of anything else that's going on. My budget really hasn't changed that much. I'll just run through some of the highlights here fairly quickly because I know you're kind of behind schedule. On the first page, you'll notice there's a $630,000 underneath the yellow. Essentially, the $630,000, what that's for is that's what we've estimated the bond payment is going to be for our new facility at the transfer station resource recovery facility. So that's what that $600,000 is for. Right underneath there, there's a $200,000 budget item, and that basically is coming from our operating budget. One of the things I should have mentioned before I got too far along here is that what we've tried to do here, and this is Kevin's initiative, and it's pretty well received, is for our capital budget, for our capital items. Essentially, those are funded through our service fee, and the service fee, as you all remember, is the amount that comes on the property tax. And right now, it's $42 per parcel.
Yeah, there's other
classifications. Right.
The typical homeowner receipt
is $42, but as the Mr. Chairman has mentioned, there's different categories depending on businesses and the size of the businesses, apartments, size of the apartments, and things like that. There are going to be a couple changes here on the internal service fund. That's on down the $277,000 number. That number should be $304,701. The reason for those changes are twofold. Number one, initially we had numbers in there for the landfill expansion, the cell expansion, and when we talked with Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Campbell, we felt that was probably more appropriate that the people that actually would be using it 8 years, 10 years from now should be paying for that rather than us paying for it now. So that is not included. That was taken out of it. The other thing that was taken out of it was there was some equipment that would be used in the transfer station that we felt was more appropriate since the city of Moorhead is utilizing this equipment. It would be more appropriate that they would actually be responsible for paying for it long term. There has been some discussion, and we'll come back and talk to you all about this later on. There has been some discussion about the county paying for it up front, but then the city repaying it over a period of time.
Commissioner Mojo and I can report on that based on.
Okay, thank you. On the next page, underneath there, we had the miscellaneous Minnesota landfill surcharge. That's for Prairie Lakes. And that number has gone down to $289,494. And the reason that number has gone down is that initially when we looked at the tipping fee was going to be about $147. I understand that tipping fee now is going to be about $137.85. And I think you're going to be talking about that as well as far as the insurance. I think that's number's still up in the air, but
No, it's done.
that's done? Yep. Okay. So the tipping fee for Prairie Lakes is going to be $137.85. And so that's changed, and that number has changed to $289,494. On the operations budget, as I mentioned.
I just briefly, I just want to explain one thing. The interfund transfer amount, that $200,000 that Kirk mentioned, those are dollars that the capital budget side, revenues is going to send over to the operations side as an offset for some management services and stuff like that. So we're showing up as an expense under the capital budget. It'll show up as a revenue on the solid waste operations budget. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Chairman, that's right. And that's where I was going to go next, the next page, the operational budget. In the operation budget, as we talked about, the operations are going to be funded by the tipping fee. And the tipping fee is how much it costs to dump your material out at the landfill. And as Kevin mentioned, I was going to mention as well, the $200,000 is known as or noted as a revenue there. I think that is about the only significant change. I'm sorry. There's a couple other ones on page. It's basically the third page from the end. I think it's 75. There's two other numbers there. There's a $7,500 number there. It's called intergovernmental payments. And essentially what the intergovernment payments are for We use the highway department to do some survey work out at the landfill. We do use them to do, all kinds of different things. And so that basically is the number that goes to the highway department for intergovernmental payments. And then finally, the other item is the 120,000, the interfund transfer. And what that number is that we are one of the few departments that actually contribute to the general fund of the county. And we do so very, very, very happily able to contribute. We do that.
Give a little more than?
We certainly could, but obviously they'd be affected on the service fee or tipping fees, so that would be it. One other thing I wanted to mention, I'll be coming back to you. Again, I know it's running late here, so I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. I will be coming back to you here in the next couple of weeks. One of the things that we've talked about is raising the tipping fee. We did not raise the tipping fee last year because I was concerned about, and the board rightfully so was concerned about the impact for COVID. We are going to be coming back and talking to you about the tipping fees. And also, we're going to come back and talk to you about raising the service fees as well. We haven't raised the service fees forever, and it's something we need to take a look at. And I think that that's something we'll come back and talk to you all about fairly soon, because a lot of the cities are in the process of putting their budget together as well.
This budget does incorporate what would be the anticipated increases so that you have a balanced budget here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
If I can just finish.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because we're going to look at this with SWAC on Thursday, and then we will come back because it will require separate action regarding that service fee and the tipping fee, and I agree with you, we want to try to get that done in September to allow for. But we're running short today for that discussion, and so we'll have you back to.
I look forward to it, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure you do. Thank you, Kirk. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Thank you much. Thank you. I'm glad to be back, actually. Thank you much.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back. Glad you're feeling better. All right, well, can we?
Do the resolution quick before a break? I know
Sure.
Emma's here.
Okay, this is the number 7?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go right to number 7. And we have a request for homeless prevention funds. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning. My name's Emma Schmidt, and I'm the Housing Director at Lakes and Prairies Community Action, or CAPLP is our nickname. And I'm here to tell you just a little bit about our Family Homelessness Prevention and Assistance Program, or FHPAP, since we have lots of acronyms. So we've been running this program for many years. It's a competitive application process. We were just approved for another 2 years of funding, which is really a wonderful program for residents of Clay County that are at risk of becoming homeless or are currently experiencing homelessness. So we can help them. This program allows us to help people that are low income and meet those definitions of homelessness, to help them get caught up on their rent, utilities, deposit, with the overall focus of housing stability. And our housing advocates help provide the supportive services for a number of different the unique needs of each household. So some people, it's helping with budgeting, referrals for community resources. Typically, this program, we help people for a short term, so about 3 months is the average amount that we target for this program. So as a contingency for receiving the funds, Minnesota Housing asks that we receive approval from our county commissions that we continue operating this program for the next 2 years, and that will start October 1st.
Commissioner Mojo.
Mr. Chair, I certainly feel that Lakes and Prairies just is such a great advocate for folks in the community. I know with the moratorium on evictions, you worked feverishly to make sure folks and landlords were connected with services out there. I think this is another extension of the good work that you continue to do. I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-36.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
let's take, Steve, let's take number 8 real quickly, and then we'll, I guess I'm gonna just try to keep going here a little
Yep.
bit to make up ground here. The coffee's kicking in, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Before you this morning for your consideration is Resolution 21-37. We were looking to adopt a post-insurance compliance policy for tax exempt and tax advantage government bonds. This has come to us as a recommendation from Ehlers. You first established a policy of this nature back in 2015 with the construction of the correctional facility. And so this really just provides the guidelines and the framework for our auditor treasurer to make sure that they stay in compliance with the IRS and the Security Exchange, SEC. And so that would be for your consideration. I'd yield for any questions.
Is this just a redo of a previous policy?
It's an update from September of 2015.
Has our county attorney's office reviewed the policy?
The auditor has gone through it.
I guess typically when we do policies like this, I think it's good to have, I would just suggest that if we have a motion to do this, that it just be contingent upon attorney approval. When we're dealing with policy, creating a policy, I think it's just good to have that review, so that's what I would suggest.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-37 pending legal review.
Second.
Yeah, thank you. Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Eber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move right to item number 9, what's our attachment F. I did see Maureen here. There she is. All right. Good morning, Maureen.
Good morning.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay, understandable. So thank you for the 2006 extra dollars that the CARES funding that we received in 2021. Our 2022 request is for a 1% increase to 2004-485. As I last saw you in August of 2021, I'll just give you a short update. We were closed November 15th through January 31st due to the governor's closure. We opened February 1st at reduced hours. During the second closure, we did a lot of cleaning and working on the 150th exhibition. We had a new lighting system installed and a new wall system, and we had a lot of refuse to clean out, including the old carpet-covered plywood walls that had served for over 20 years. Staff were fully vaccinated in April, and we prepared for a vigorous tourist season, and tourist traffic has been outstanding June, July. Possibly, it's over what 2019 was, and 2019 was a very good year. People are traveling from long distances to come to the museum. I haven't done the analysis yet, but it could be as much as 10% more, and certainly more than we had budgeted for. We came out of 2021 with only about 39% of our budgeted admissions last year, and only about 14% of our gift shop income. However, we were helped by a lot of people. Our members and donors really rallied and were very generous. We received a Moorhead Cares, some Moorhead Cares funds, a PPP loan that was forgiven for payroll, and a second one this year. And then some unexpected grants that saw us through the challenges. We budgeted in 2021 to have to dip into our reserves, but we've been fortunate throughout 2021 to be able to pay all our bills and not yet go into the reserve. We'll see how the rest of the year goes because of the shift in COVID. There's a definite decrease right now. We would normally finish August very, very strong and go into September still pretty healthy, but even something like COVID canceling the Norse Hoostfest in Minot impacts our admissions because we often get 6 or 7 busloads of people in just for that event. We opened full-time May 1st, but again, we had no children's tours. We normally have a lot of children during the month of May. That is their school tour month. And we can handle up to 150 children from all throughout the county at one time. And we do this by, within a 2-hour visit, they visit 6 different educational stations throughout the museum. We look forward to coming back to that in 2022. So in February of 2021, we were notified by our landlord, the City of Moorhead, that the Fargo-Moorhead Community Theater would be moving into our primary exhibition hall, where we had just installed new lighting and new walls. That was about 7,000 square feet of exhibit space. We moved our exhibits downstairs and lost one entire gallery of space, so we will not be having regional art exhibitions anymore. We were able to retrofit the 3rd floor gallery at the MCOM Center with our new lighting and new walls, and I have to say the current traveling exhibition, Forced to Flee, which is an art quilt exhibit focused on the global refugee crisis, really looks spectacular, and I invite you to come down to take a look at that. It's really something to see. Our hall cases have Clay County artifacts and stories in them, and then down on the lowest level, the staff is currently installing the long-awaited exhibit that's going to be on the formation of Clay County 150 years ago. It will have a strong Native American component, as visitor surveys have informed us that that is a top topic of interest for our visitors. And it will talk about the development of government and towns, the railroad, and agriculture. But it did have to be rewritten and redesigned to fit into a gallery that was 1,000 square feet smaller. The opening is September 10th. We are currently taking reservations by our website, and we'll only be able to have 75 in attendance due to the COVID restrictions. And you are all invited to attend if you reserve online. Use of the funds is to primarily support the collection staff and care of 12,000 objects and the archival materials. Archivist Mark Peel, whose work is widely known and appreciated in the community and who is often quoted in the media when historical perspective is needed on any issue. Collections manager Lisa Vida, who has care of the 12,000 objects, and the collections assistant Jenna Collins. Together, Lisa and Jenna completed a full wall-to-wall inventory of every object in the collection, and they are in the process of photographing every item for our database. The long-term goal is to make more of the Clay County collection accessible to the public through online means. That's a big trend in museums, is to show your collection items more widely. We continue to collect, preserve, interpret, and share the history and culture of Clay County to the best of our ability, and will continue to do for as long as we can. Archivist Mark Peel celebrated 35 years as the Clay County archivist this year, and he plans to go on as long as he can. Lisa Vida will celebrate 20 years next year in 2022. I always say we have a lifetime of work ahead of us because history and culture never end. I invite you to come by. If you have not had a behind-the-scenes tour, I'd be delighted to give you one. So please keep that in mind. As we are on a calendar year for a fiscal year, we do not approve our budget until December. I will forward that as soon as it is approved by the Board of Directors. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions? Maureen, I think you know that normally on these requests, we go through our entire budget and we'll probably be making our decisions in regards to external agencies' request, of course, by the time we do our preliminary levy, which is by the October 1. So we'll have an answer for you, and if there's any, I think if there's any further questions regarding your proposed increase from Clay County, we'll get back to you. But
Excellent, and I do appreciate when I can get a letter confirming that for our auditor, so.
We will let
Thank
you
you very much. We greatly appreciate the county's support of all that we do. We know it's just vitally important to our success and our continuing to serve the public of Clay County, so, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 10, I'm gonna kind of just keep pushing through here. Cecilia, welcome in person now.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you all in person. Good morning, everybody. Those that I haven't met in person. I don't think I've met any of you in person. It feels like I have, except for Steve. But thank you. I know you're short for time, so I'll keep it brief. Last time I was with you, I didn't have any program update, and I've been here only 2 months. So I'll share what I know for now. The attachment is in your document, then you should be able to go over it. But I'm proud to let you know that the county fair went really well. We have kids going to state fair, and we have some conversations around how that was going to happen, and we have a plan together, and hotels are going to be busy for state fair for kids to come up. So that's really great to hear. And just talking about 4-H, thank you for your support for 4-H, your continued support. And my time here today is to just update you a little bit about programming that's happening and also talk about our budget for upcoming 2022. And as you all know, most of kids that are in 4-H have success in college rates compared to kids that are not in 4-H. And we know in our community, we have other people in our community that haven't been tapped. And with that, we're making strides to make sure that we're increasing enrollment and really with the new generation 4-H families, getting to know about the program and also giving the opportunity to participate due to really high success rate. And also we have about 97 of our kids from 8th to 12th grade youth are willing to consider new ideas, and then with new generation and way of our world going, we really appreciate when kids can understand that every opinion matters, and they can learn that through their 4-H program that they do. And I want to flip over to the next page with the graph just showing the way 4-H educators are able to engage community. And as you can see on the graph on the second page, they are doing a lot of the enrollment, and from 2019 to 2020, a lot of the clubs are doing social interest short programming. They are also organizing after-school clubs, and they're also engaging people through community clubs. So that's the mode of targeting families to come to this programming, and with that, they're able to get a lot of enrollment, as you can see on the side-by-side here, how that mode of engagement is really helping with enrollment. One thing I want to bring your attention to is comparing surrounding cities programming. If you look at Idatel, they've got 3.8 youth educators that are out there doing enrollment, and with that means they have a lot more enrollment because they have the staff. And if you look at Becker County too, have similar county demographics as us, and we just don't have the pool that they do have. So that just means that we just need to figure out how we can get more staff doing a lot more community engagement so we can get more enrollment compared to the staff in our area. And I'll just keep it that way as you can go through there's highlights of some of the programming that has been done with the 4-H STEP program. We just hired a new STEM educator, and she will be starting sometime next month. So we got keys for her, and she'll be in the building continuing that program that the previous staff started. And we also have Lego program going for the younger kids, and 100% of the participants are saying that they want more of Lego. I know that's a fun activity that kids really enjoy.
Cecilia, just for the sake of we have 2 new commissioners, will you just explain STEM, what that stands for?
I am not entirely sure.
Commissioner Moses,
I know
maybe you
it's
Science, technology, engineering, and
Math, okay,
Yep.
all right.
see, I was bad at math.
Okay, it's just kind of good to know those are.
Yeah, it just helps kids really apply the knowledge that they are learning in classroom to real world technology. That's what I know about STEM. So I'll stop with that, with the program update, and then we'll go into our budget information. As you can see, we do have a new request to move our educator, who's currently we have 1.5 FTE, and the request is to move that individual to a full-time employee, so that will give us a two educator, and that amount change will be 38,475. And as you can see from our 2020 budget, there's actually a decrease due to retirements that we've had, so that kind of frees up the budget a little bit more. And then we've also continuing request for the summer intern position, and that 6,500 is including travel for that summer intern. So the new request will be 316,275 with a change of 45,475.
Commissioner Mojo?
Cecilia, I see in the memo that Glendon Farms has long been a great sponsor, contributing $10,000 annually to that STEM coordinator position. I see in 2020 they increased the gift to $15,000. One significant gratitude to them for their generosity. That's wonderful. I have had conversations with Extension in regard to if there's a documented need in Clay County for the amount of youth and programs that exist, which I think there is a documented need, how can we find a happy medium? And so was Glendon Farms, I know with our STEM retirement that we had, one position moved over and is now doing more STEM programming, and then you have the halftime.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you could take the $6,000 that we pay annually in the intern and roll that over to what the extension educator would be doing, effectively eliminating the intern position, but also then you can apply the $6,000 to what a new request would be to increase the staffing? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to figure out how we piecemeal something together to make it work. Both employees, both extension educators I've seen just are very active in the community and do great things. But I'm wondering, could that intern part, could you take the intern out, keep the line item there, just roll it into the other one, and then maybe use your summer ambassadors to help with camps? Is that a way that we could find a happy medium? Since Glendon Farms did come to the table and put $5,000 more in there, and we are still doing substantial STEM programming.
Yeah, I think from the conversations I've had, they really appreciate the benefit of contributing to the youth leadership, and that's what kids really learn when they are in those positions. And so our caution is eliminating that position, because that just takes away from building into our community. But that's something that we can discuss if there's so many different options as well that was presented initially.
Yeah.
So if we need to go a different route with that position, that would be another discussion that we can have. But I think I strongly recommend that we continue improving the lives of our teens so they can have that leadership. They learn a lot when they're in those positions.
Yeah, and I certainly agree, and I think a long backstory is Commissioner Campbell's son, Scotty, and I were part of the Clay County Ambassador Program, and it was transformational in terms of how it affected my life, and maybe Scotty could say the same. And so I think that in those years, there were 2 full-time extension educators.
Yeah.
And I think the enrollment certainly could show that they would stay busy. And so I don't necessarily see it as eliminating a part of the youth leadership part. My hope is that allowing either, Macy's position to have more hours would allow them to regenerate that ambassador program. And so instead of maybe just having one intern that would be positively affected, you could have a crew of 20 ambassadors like we used to in different capacities. So, certainly worth the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that comment. That's something that we can certainly look into. I do want to say that we do have 2 interns, and the Federation does pay for one other intern, and then the county will pay for the other intern. So that's another thing.
What, our contract, what is the, because that's not on a calendar, is it? Is it on a fiscal year, or is it a calendar year?
Your contract is a 3-year contract, so once
Yeah.
we approve.
Starting when? Starting?
January.
So it does start January? Okay, all right. So knowing that, I guess you've presented your budget outlook and you've presented your request, and you've given us some information that could choose whether we stay at the current levels, whether we increase it a portion to 0.75, 0.8, and 1.0. And I'm going to tell you, like I've told everybody else who comes in and presents to us, that I think is this the last week now of our presentations for budgets? And I believe you'll come forward with our auditor treasurer at our first meeting in September, and we'll be looking at reviewing the budget as a whole, everything, and I don't think we're going to be in a position to answer you today, but we'll be keeping this under consideration and taking a look at our budget as a whole.
Yeah. I want to say something off the record, just personal observation.
Well, you better not say it off the record because you're on the record. So.
I know, I'm learning.
Okay.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's just a strong recommendation that, with the job force and how things are looking these days, we want to be cognizant of making sure we keep the people that we do have, and this is one way of doing that.
Valid point.
I served on the interview panel for both your position and also Macy's position, and I agree that was a long process, and we do see workforce shortages everywhere, so that is duly noted.
All right. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day. Yeah.
All right, I think that concludes all our items except for committee reports, so I am going to suggest we take like a 3-minute break.
Yes.
Because I've had a lot of coffee. Okay. We're going to reconvene here, and the items left on our agenda today are committee reports, and I can't remember who I started with.
Started with me, so start over there.
Oh, I started with you last time? All right, Commissioner Cayley, you can lead the way today.
See if I have a mic that works. So on the 17th, I attended the Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Council. We had a long discussion on the creation of 3 standing committees for that council to ensure active participation from all the members and to better meet the goals and objectives of that council. And then there was also some discussion on different ways that we could work to expand the membership in that and broaden the discussion on mental health and collaboration between agencies in our area. On the 17th, I met with a citizen who had some concerns about homelessness, particularly homeless youth in the area. On the 19th, I attended the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County board meeting, and Maureen was just here and gave us a good update on things there. At that meeting, we had an update from Davin, and there was a discussion on making sure the whole county is seen, heard, and represented in that entity, in the museum, and in their efforts in the articles that are produced, et cetera. So there's really good work already being done, but just some discussion on that. On the 20th, I attended the Substance Abuse and Suicide Prevention meeting. Jason, who was just here, was that just last week, and announced that he's got the grant and the position to work on positive community norms work with DGF, and they are hopeful for a similar grant to come through for that substance abuse prevention work with Moorhead Public Schools. Holly next week is hosting a trauma-informed training. And that's a multi-day training. And I just would really like to commend Holly's school district for taking that on. To be considered a trauma-informed school, my understanding is you have to train every staff member, custodian, bus driver, teachers, all the way up. So the amount of respect and the depth of caring that they're showing for their community and mental health is just really awesome. So thank you to Holly and for all of the teachers, staff, and community members from Holly and also the surrounding area that are attending those trainings. On the 20th, I also attended an early child initiative subcommittee where we discussed the search for a new coordinator after Carolyn Sternad's retirement. A new coordinator has not been found yet, so we're kind of expanding that applicant pool. The next day, on the 21st, the actual early childhood initiative met, and so we discussed that update from the coordinator search, as well as the early childhood dental network grants. So there's a new round of grants because there was some extra money. So we discussed some details of how we could apply for that and utilize those funds within the county. And I just want to thank all the teachers and staff and administrators and school boards and everybody as we gear up to go back to school, from early learning on up through higher ed. Thank you for your service in our community. That concludes my reports.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross.
I'm going to go to 2 weeks of meetings, I guess. Watching the end of the meeting from last week that I missed, I saw you gave a report on highway tracking, so I think that you covered that well. That was on that Wednesday, on Tuesday. Wednesday, I went to the Wild Rice Watershed District, where the Red River Board, they're part of the Red River Board, and they gave a pretty good update on how they're doing. They're asking for their same budget of 75% request. He went over quite a few things about the annual programs that they do, their funding commitments, their dikes that they're working on. So he gave a very good, like I say, what Red River Watershed is doing up there. They're also working on legislative efforts in 2021 and funding that they're going to try and get from there. Thursday, I went to the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon. They're also, I think, a deal that I'm going to get involved with is in homelessness, and the VA is also doing on the 26th, from 9:30 to 12, they're doing a presentation on homelessness. The VA, since we were talking so much about masks this morning, the VA is still wearing masks and will continue to do so indefinitely. So, last Tuesday, went to the Planning Commission meeting. The main thing there, I think there was a lot of discussion on the Red River Valley Electric, they're gonna build a building on the corner of 15th Avenue North and County 11. Moorhead had the representation here, very concerned about building very close to the Buffalo Aquifer. At this time, I think the Planning Commission decided to go with the building plans to allow the permit.
No, that was they chose to recommend it action to this board positively.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that's going to come before us in September.
Yeah. So. And then also the sale of that property that we had at the Buffalo Red out there by Riverton Township. I attended that sale too, which there was only one bidder on that. So. That completes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last week, I attended for the first part of the PIC committee meeting at as vice chair, since Commissioner Gross had a previous engagement, I'll let Commissioner Campbell report on the results of that. That evening, I attended the Planning and Zoning, our Planning Commission. We did have two requests before the board, a request for an interim use home occupational permit in Uland Township. It seemed to fit the parameters for an appropriate request. That permit was approved, and then we did have a public hearing for the Red River Valley Electric Co-op, that a petition for rezoning that Commissioner Gross had talked about. There's was substantial conversation. I think we were able to identify two issues from MPS and asked if those two issues could be mitigated. Historically, we have been able to accomplish that with conditions. That will, as Commissioner Campbell said, come before this board in September. We did have an update from Adam Altenberg from MetroCog on our Clay County Comprehensive Plan update. They will be having meetings with subgroups, meeting with ag producers, I believe is happening either this week or early next week. So I appreciate the continued outreach on that front. I also attended the Red River Management Board that Commissioner Gross had talked about. If you don't receive emails from them on their highlights, they send out an email list of all the highlights of all the different funding commitments and programs and collaborations that they are continuing to work through. So I appreciate that, and they're continuing to do really good work. I attended the AMC Extension had their annual meeting with community stakeholders statewide, and as well with the Extension Committee, AMC State Committee. Really good updates on programming on rural farm stress and how the university continues to move forward with the important work in a pandemic, but also continuing to find ways to outreach folks so that they know what's out there. I think Commissioner Gross has said several times, Extension has so many different informational programs and studies and opportunities out there that I'm not sure folks really know about. So head over to the University of Minnesota website and you'll really see a lot that Extension continues to do. It's not just about 4-H, which, if you're wondering, there's a group of 20 kids going down to the state fair tomorrow, so Clay County will be represented well there. I attended the MetroCog meeting last week as well. Really good discussion on the studies that they continue to do. We had a amendment to the Veterans Boulevard Corridor Extension. We talked about the MetroCog baseline for the 2050 demographic forecast. Talked a little bit about the census and how that has changed all of the different allocations. Because of Hawley growing so much, they've seen about a 7% increase over the last decade in their population. They're not qualified to be an associate member. It's not a voting member, but definitely to be part of the discussion. And I did have a discussion afterwards with the mayor of Hawley to let him know about that. And then we did take action on the transit development plan, their final report. That concludes that. Yesterday, I attended the Lakeland Mental Health Center's annual or monthly board meeting. Really good updates from the center in terms of their access indicators. They're continuing to see really high access requests. In terms of getting an appointment anywhere in the agency, we're seeing anywhere from 1 day to 6 days agency-wide for the ability to get in to see a therapist. So I appreciate their continuation on making sure that they're easily accessible to folks. Their program margins look really healthy. They've been able to continue to find areas of need that folks are needing. Rhonda Porter from Social Services was there to talk a little bit about the children's day treatment that we're seeing in Moorhead, Holly, and Barnesville school districts. There is, as we've all seen, a lot of need for children's therapy and making sure that we're splitting it out for those most critical care kids that Social Services works with, so they'll get more information there. And then continuing to watch for any public policy that could change. We do have a significant need still statewide for group homes, and so between Douglas County and Clay County, continuing to talk about the lack of bed space statewide and what that means. You know, we're not saying that we need a 300-bed facility, which would be nice to help ease some of the need. Even a smaller 6-bed facility could really help with those placements. We had reports from the Moorhead supervisors, and Clay County is just really represented in all areas, both rural and in our urban areas, for making sure folks have the mental health supports that they need going forward. After that meeting, I attended the construction meeting for our solid waste facility. We did have that meeting here because of the recent rainfall out at the site. Construction engineers continues to work towards our completion. We're expecting, there still are some delays in the building. We're expecting that, I believe, mid to late January. Talked a little bit about site design. We did have those two issues. One was the 15th Avenue water feed that was going to the ball fields. There is a change order that's seeming to get a little more expensive as it moves forward, and I think we still really have to have conversations with the city of Moorhead, our contractor, and us to make sure we're clear with both entities wanting what was repaired. We did see some more savings on that other approach, and so I think that helps, but we'll just see how it goes moving forward. But construction engineers continues to provide us the information that we need, and we're pushing forward. And as you can see, there's concrete that's being poured out there in the pit area, and construction goes on as it can. And I think that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebinger.
Thank you. Last week, on Tuesday and Wednesday, I attended the meeting of the selection group on the dispatch center architectural firm, along with Sheriff Empting and representatives from Cass County, Fargo, West Fargo, and Moorhead. As indicated earlier in the presentation by Mr. Larson and Mr. Wilson, Short, Ellison, and Hendrickson was selected by the committee after the 5 finalists were interviewed, and we passed motions on that today to proceed. On the 19th, I attended the Clay County Substance Abuse meeting virtually. At the time of the meeting, there was still no notice. Drug-Free Community Grant that we discussed last week in my report. Discussed Positive Norms Grant that Jason McCoy will be stationed out of DGF schools this coming year. He's got a 2-year grant there. He's still working for the county, but will be working out of the school with that Positive Norms Grant. We had the discussion on suicide prevention, which is working with the substance abuse group now, and we covered some of the preemptive or upstream action that can reduce suicide. I don't know, in reports on the tobacco ordinance, I don't know what the decision was from Moorhead last night, but they did bring up what type of ordinance they want to proceed on at their meeting last night. We'll also be starting, our public health people will be starting discussions with Moorhead schools again to establish a cross-community restorative justice and harm reduction program in Moorhead this year, since there are no consequences attached because of recent legislation to minor possession of tobacco. They'll be trying to do something through restorative justice. And that completes my report.
Thank you. I'll go into my report. On August 17th, we had a PIC meeting. One of the items that we were talked about was a request of additional personnel for public health for Kathy McKay, and I don't see where that's come forward yet.
That'll be before the board on the 7th, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, and I think I'll withhold my comments regarding the PIC recommendation until that presentation is made by Kathy. Then we had an update on the remote work policy, and of course, we've already took action on that. And then we did get a brief update on the attorney arbitration process, and can either wait for Brian to report on that, or Steve, if you want to talk about that, we certainly can. But on the 18th, Mr. Larson and I met at the request of Shannon Full and Mason Rademacher from the Chamber regarding some workforce issues and discussion. And I was really impressed with that conversation, and the Chamber's got some really kind of neat tools to use in the future, and I think we're going to be maybe hearing some more from them coming up soon. And I think they're really incorporating a lot of discussion from our tech schools to our colleges to our high schools, and really trying to focus on how we're going to fix these workforce demands in the future. And you can't do it without having the business being part of that conversation, so it's a good thing. On the August 20th, I was in Perham for a budget committee meeting, and there's a lot of good news that came out of that. We finally have gotten that insurance resolved, and as you know, in 2021 we had budgeted $470,000 for insurance. That had gone up from 2 years prior to that, from $80,000 to $470,000. Now with our new policy, that number for 2022 is going to be $237,000. So it's a really a positive thing on our behalf, and hopefully we're going to be able to buy down. Originally, before all this happened, there was going to be a recommendation for about a 5.5% tipping fee increase for that facility. And now we've been able to work that down to, I think we're probably down at about a 2% increase in that, and that increase would be representative to what's in Kirk's budget for solid waste. And on Monday, I had the same meeting with Commissioner Mojo regarding the transfer station. One of the things that Commissioner Mojo mentioned was the change order. It's good news on that regard. We originally anticipated, and I know Commissioner Gross, you were excited about the 34th Street, moving that over to 15th Avenue, and they thought we might be able to save $500,000 on that, and it looks like the new number coming in is more like a $630,000. So it's a positive, very positive result of that, moving that. And then in terms of, we did have some discussions. We've had some discussions regarding those other items, and I agree with Commissioner Moser that we need to continue to have that dialogue. We have some differences of opinion between maybe construction engineers and engineering, and so we'll work through those. And my past experiences with construction engineers is we'll come to a good resolution on that. And I think just got to work through it. And I think ultimately, and I know Commissioner Mojo and I and Steve did meet with more public service and the city, and also their city engineer was there going over those issues, and they shed some light on some different things. And that concludes my report. Steve, we got to flip burgers in about 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 17th, I attended the PIC committee that's been covered in detail. On the 17th, I met with Cecilia Amadou about the extension budget and planning. That afternoon, I had some department head evaluations with one of the evaluations the following day. On the 18th, again, I met with Shannon Full and Mason Rademacher, which has been covered by Commissioner Campbell. I also, the next day, I met with Kathy McKay on a series of public health issues. On the 20th, I took phone calls from Ben Madsen of Construction Engineers and also Kirk on the Resource Recovery Facility. And on the 23rd, I met with Darren on a number of HR-related issues. Yesterday, I also spent detailed conversation with Kathy McKay. Met with Lori Johnson on a series of bonds-related meetings that we're going to be coming up with Ehlers. Participated in the owners' meeting that's been covered by Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Mojo. And also met briefly with representatives from the detox facility. Again, just a reminder, the 26th, there's the vaccine clinic from 1 to 5 at the Family Service Center. There'll be Pfizer and Moderna. Just an update back on the security position. On June 22nd, this board agreed to utilize $23,102.28 for the security position. Very recently, you ended that service. We provided a 30-day notice, which they ended up doing about a 3-day notice because they had additional needs elsewhere. And so the county, I won't say saved, we didn't expend $17,560 of that original $23,000. Just wanted to make you guys aware of that. I did provide you guys on your desk this morning some information on the census specific to Clay County townships and cities and the difference between the 2010 to 2020 census. And also, Commissioner Campbell mentioned next week, Lori and I will be, in 2 weeks, Lori and I will be coming forward with a budget update and again, looking for some specific direction from this board on where you would like us to be at. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Just a reminder that next Tuesday is the 5th Tuesday for the public. The county board will not be meeting, and our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 7th. Our county courthouse will be closed on Monday, September 6th for Labor Day. With that, Colleen, do you have anything else for us this morning? All right, we will stand adjourned.